Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mint, and on this channel I talk about stocks, investing, and finance, and I have $27,000 invested into Palantir, so we're doing another due diligence video on Palantir. Now, today we're going to be talking about Palantir's partnership with Airbus. That is not a partnership that happened recently. It's a partnership that happened a couple of years ago, but we're going to talk about what this meant for Palantir and ultimately what it means for a data analytics software company, which is Palantir, to integrate with a company that creates a lot of Internet of Things hardware. Now, if you don't know what Internet of Things is, I did another video on that and sort of Palantir's role in it. You can check that out. I'll link that in the description, but that's ultimately what Airbus does. So first of all, we're going to talk about what Airbus is and ultimately the role of Airbus and why I picked Palantir. So on the website, Airbus says, "We pioneer sustainable aerospace for a safe and united world." Airbus has always been at the forefront of innovating new technologies with a pioneering spirit that has redefined the aerospace industry. Our products bring people closer together, helping them unite and progress. We strive to continuously push the boundaries on what is possible. They make airplanes. You could compare them to Boeing. Now, their airplanes are not necessarily the traditional 767, 737 type of fleet of airplanes. They do that, but they also make some really different, unique type of airplanes that are meant for commercial travel, that are meant to export products all across the world, and to ultimately give a different experience in regards to aerospace in general. You would think Airbus is more so around things that other traditional commercial aerospace manufacturers don't necessarily do. So they definitely want to focus on protecting. This is military grade equipment. This is airplanes that go into the sky. This is making sure countries are protected, serving communities, connecting people across the world, and ultimately trying to go into space, right? Airbus is not sort of focused on rockets, but Airbus does have a lot of expertise in the aerospace markets, and they are focused on different potential trajectories for the company to be able to innovate technologies that could potentially launch them into space and pioneer and reach new heights, as they say on their website one day. So Airbus has created a platform to analyze the data that they have in conjunction with Palantir called Skywise, okay? And we're going to talk about what Skywise necessarily means. So this was back in June 2017. And again, when you're doing due diligence, you got to get deeper. You got to understand what this company is doing, how this company is interacting, and ultimately what the company is trying to create, where Airbus ultimately released this information. So Airbus is making a major play for the operational and passenger benefits of the Internet of Things with its new Skywise open aviation data platform in partnership with the U.S. analytics data platform, Palantir. Today's announcement was today's announcement was about the identification of the core platform. So this is sort of the things that we're going to be talking about. Now, this is what Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, ultimately said for this press release, which was, how do you augment the value of an engineer rather than replacing the engineer, making every employee at Airbus more valuable and not replaced by some algorithm? This is a really important part of why an initiative like this is valuable, because you want to create innovation and make the workers more important as opposed to having innovation in unemployed people. So Palantir, and this is really answering the current concern that a lot of people had, which is, is software, if it's eating up and taking over the world, do a lot of people ultimately get unemployed, and a lot of people don't have the ability to make a living? Now, that's going to happen for some people. So, for example, when autonomous driving becomes the thing that it is, I think the Uber Eats drivers of the world, the DoorDash drivers, the regular Uber drivers, there's a world in which they don't have a job. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen anytime soon, but because I'm not that bullish on autonomous driving in the short term. I do think it's a long time away, just given all the data that is required to make it actually effective and meaningful. But if you think about that, you're not going to have workers have those jobs. I mean, I've already seen it going into McDonald's. You can self-order things, so you don't need someone at the cash register, right? Because you just pay with Apple Pay, you self-order, and then boom, right? Then you get your food. So you need people to make the food. You don't need people to necessarily ring up the food for you anymore. So these are ways in which software automates a lot of things. Palantir is not a company that's trying to automate things. Palantir is trying to make software for non-technical people and for technical people to understand better use cases of their data by visualization, by AI, ML models that are simulating different scenarios that could potentially happen, and ultimately make the people understanding the data more valuable to the company because of the insights they can provide rather than less employable to the company. Now, this was really important. They said, over 2 years, our engineers and IT team have been working very closely with Airbus to build the capability to capture the data created by the aircraft systems to try and help minimize and prevent delays. Through this work, we have managed to identify the most frequent 100 aircraft faults that cause disruption to our passengers, that we have been working on how to use that data to defect these faults as they develop, which is another use case scenario of all these different elements of data that ultimately need to come together in order for these things to make sense at scale. Now, this is also really important because you're talking about the different ways in which data operates. So one of the key things that I thought was very important is that Airbus is known to have to be able to produce 30 gigabytes of data per day upon all the different variables that happen within that Airbus, which measures about more than 40,000 operational parameters for different components and systems. All of these different parameters and systems have different roles within the larger aircraft and within the larger role of fleets of aircrafts, which produces that much data. How does this data manifest itself? You have commercial data, you have scheduling data, you have operational data recorded by pilots, flight attendants, engineers, maintenance technicians, airport representatives, among others. So you have all these different sets of data that are coming from all these different people that are part of the moment you check in to your airport, all the way to when you get to your destination at the end of the journey. And suppliers and OEMs are also a big source of information just in terms of manufacturing the airplane in the first place. So is the airline industry using all of that data? That is the fundamental question. Because if we can understand why the airline industry, not just Airbus, right, but in general, airline industries, United, Southwest, all these different companies are using that data and they're making sense of that data to have cost savings, then Palantir Foundry makes sense, right? Palantir Foundry and the data integration within these types of companies doesn't make sense if the airlines don't need this data or the data is not actually being operationalized in a meaningful way. So Skywise is an open data platform designed by Airbus with Palantir for the entire aviation industry. And this is why I think this news is actually very important. It's not just something that's siloed towards Airbus. It's actually a data partnership that is creating a precedent for the airline industry. So if you've got Spirit Airlines, for example, I hope no one has ever used Spirit Airlines. I've used it once. Let's go to Texas. It was bad. Wants to make their flights more efficient or more effective or understand more about their customers. That's what this open source software would be able to do, or this open source platform would be able to do with integration of data at scale. So if Spirit can be like, oh, we can save millions of dollars when developing the aircrafts or millions of dollars from the point where someone steps on the aircraft, then that's really an important thing, right? So the main purpose of Skywise is to provide insights from the incredible amounts of data that was until now locked within corporate silos, making it into one platform. Again, adding to the network effect of the data that is created. Where more data gets into the network, the platform Foundry becomes more powerful because it has all these data points, which means it's able to give a better ROI to the people that are using the software in order to make sense of that data. So Skywise creates values for airlines and suppliers by providing them with a powerful platform that integrates multiple systems that historically have been disconnected in most airlines. Using Skywise analytical tools, airlines can generate insights with both code-free and code-based environments. This is very important because Palantir's entire mission is to help non-technical people understand the things that are being said in a much more easier way. And there's millions of times, as I've done research on the company, that they've been quoted that we want non-technical people to actually understand the software and actually be able to understand the platform. Now, final thing I'll say here is that here are some examples of projects or problems that can be tackled by the platform in order to make the data make more sense. They can reduce maintenance issues and prevent technical delays, which is a big deal in the airline industry. I mean, if you've got delays, just because the logistics weren't set up when the airplane came, that's the difference between someone missing their 8:30 meeting in the morning or not missing that meeting, which really means you're going to miss out on the dollars because they're not going to use you next time, right? If they have to deal with the delays. They can identify defect patterns and predict failures using AI. That's a big thing. You're talking about people's lives being saved. Increase fuel efficiency, very good for the environment. Optimize part replacements, reducing operational costs. That's just good money for the supply chain that you can save. Minimize flight schedule changes, impact on passengers and operations for complex flight networks, and automate reporting of several regulatory documents. The documents thing is paperwork. Nobody wants to do that. If you can automate that, that's awesome. Saving people time and money on the schedules in terms of their ability to get on the right planes. That's also a huge, huge big thing. So Airbus, to me, the reason this was with Boeing and not Airbus is because Boeing is more one of those legacy airplane companies. Boeing and Airbus are sort of the two big ones that are out there, right? Airbus is a little bit more modern than Boeing, a little bit more data heavy. They care about like the cool, sexy, analytical stuff. Whereas Boeing is more so like your run of the mill. Someone in Indiana will be like working at a Boeing factory. It's kind of, blue chip, white collar type of jobs, things like that. So Airbus sort of recognized, okay, if we can partner with software companies that allows us to create an open platform, not only will the rest of the industry adopt it, it will make the entire industry more efficient, and our airplanes from an operational perspective in terms of being created, delivered, and then companies being able to make sure that the software and the platform can make the experience on the consumer really enjoyable and meaningful. that's also going to be a very important thing, right? So that's where this partnership starts to make a lot of sense. And that's where also this partnership starts to make Palantir's software make a lot of sense, because it's going to be the foundational element that creates the data analytics integration into the Skywise Airbus open source platform. So I think it's a big deal. I mean, in terms of the stock, I think it's bullish for the stock. Obviously, this is old news. This happened a couple of years ago, but this is sort of the stuff you want to understand as you're recognizing how Palantir can operate with these major corporations and ultimately propel these major corporations to innovate new platforms by taking tons and tons of data and putting it in one place, making sense of that data, and then using that data to have the right business outcomes. Let me know what you guys think about Airbus and Palantir's partnership. I definitely think it's important, definitely think it's interesting. And I also definitely think that if this is very successful over the next 5-10 years, you're talking about a lot of other companies. We know Palantir invested in Lilium, which is an electric airplane vehicle company that is also using the same Foundry software to operationalize and make better decisions using data. So a lot of different use cases I think that this can work out for when it comes to Foundry at the intersection of the aerospace industry. Let me know what you guys think. My name is Amit. Thank you guys for watching the Daily Business Show. As always, I will see you in the next one.